Hello, it's been a while, but we are finally doing our next cruise. We are going to be doing Celebrity this time, which is also part of Royal Caribbean. Same thing as Silver Sea. I guess they're both considered kind of a step up, but we wanted to do something a little bit different. They're more leisure cruises, as there's not going to be rides and rock wall climbing and different things on those ships. However, they are going to be hopefully a little bit nicer in some regards, like some of the food and the restaurants and their setups, maybe their bars. I don't know. We're going to go and kind of find out. But we want to do something a little different. So we are doing that, and we are heading out to Bermuda on the Celebrity Silhouette. But to get here, we are actually in Newark, New Jersey. It has been a bit of a challenge. We had a few hour delay on our flight, and our plane had really no air, so felt kind of like a sauna. And I think if it lasted any much longer, I probably would have had to find a way to stick my head out the window. I was burning up pretty bad and sweating. However, once we finally got to Newark, New Jersey, it became a little interesting as we were not exactly sure where to go or how to get there. Our hotel is only about 5 minutes away from the airport, but it took us probably close to an hour to actually get here because you have to get on a bus, which then takes you to the monorail. And then you got to take the monorail down to P4, which is where all of the zones for getting on your hotel shuttles are. And then you got to get on your hotel shuttle and take that ride all the way over to the hotel. But like I said, it's only about 5 minutes away. And I can even prove it because our window even shows the long-term parking and the airport directly outside. The hotel itself is the Best Western Plus. It looks clean and nice, but hasn't been the best. We were greeted by a construction worker who was just outside of our window at one point, basically face to face. And he then proceeded to working on something on the walls, going all the way around our room, and that was going past, I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock. Been a while, a lot of banging and scraping sounds. And to be honest, the hotel, some people might be okay with this, but it really kind of hits you in the face with the smell of weed, especially in the bathroom. Once you open up the bathroom, it just kind of hits you. Some people might be okay with that. We're just not used to it. So that was definitely different. But outside of that, we are getting ready to get on the ship. So let's go see.
The people that you see on this shuttle with us ended up being on everything with us, whether it was the planes or getting on the ship, even the hotel. They seemed to always be where we were. And at the very end of the cruise, we had a little bit of a amazing race situation on who could get home the fastest because we had all sorts of issues. This room is where you go when you are at the port just a little bit too early. Unfortunately, we only had one time that we could get a ride to the port, so we got stuck sitting there for a half hour, so it wasn't too terrible, but it kind of felt like we were herded like animals. Something we learned and we really appreciated was that with Celebrity Cruises, you can go straight to your room. There is no waiting for porters. You don't have to mandatorily drop off your luggage. You can just grab your stuff, take it directly to your room as soon as you get on, and drop everything off. we felt that the patio here was actually huge. We kind of wish that they would have cut it in half and maybe added it to the room, but oh well.
Way off in the distance there is the Statue of Liberty. We're going to see that later.
They will set it up for you.
What's wrong?
I'm gonna sleep on this one. Oh, I keep it open, Dad.
Do which one?
Oh, I like the smell.
Bed. Nice big spacious bathroom.
This is as far as it goes. They went further.
Tons of space in the top. Lots of space down there.
In the video, this is also here. That was the video. Oh, did they have the same room as us? Oh, it's free. Whoa. Deadpool 2.
The Staten Island Ferry. You can't see it really well, but all the people on the top were actually waving at us, so of course we waved back. As you can see, it was really foggy, and it actually got worse on the first day, but we had a really cool visual when we went underneath the bridge and then right up next to the Statue of Liberty. We actually did a whole 360 with the ship before we sailed off. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a ship tour. There are some things I'm going to leave out, especially the million different bars that they had on there, but we're going to cover all of the main stuff. This is the Lumine, so if you are lucky enough to be able to get into a sky suite, you get to eat there every single night, and actually breakfast and lunch as well, so that's pretty cool. This is where you can go to the shore excursions and book anything that you want. You can also do it on the app. And this is just, again, another one of the random bars that they have seemingly everywhere. And back here is some great spots if you just kind of want to sit down and be left alone. For some reason, not a lot of people go there. Guest relations. If you, of course, need anything, you can go and see them. That's pretty much it for Deck 3. So back onto Deck 4. You got some pretty cool stuff, including the Quasar. They will do karaoke there about every single night. At least that's what we noticed. There always seemed to be people in there singing their hearts out. I was tempted to do it, but I'm not that brave, so I ended up not. And down here is where all of the shopping is. It's a little bit more high-end shopping. And my wife came very close to buying a Louis Vuitton or something because she about got talked into it. Fortunately, we didn't. But here is a really cool bar. They will do this show every single night. They're up on the tables and flinging things around. Every time that we saw them going, we always tried to go over there and watch. It was pretty cool. This is the Grand Suvie, or Suve, I don't know how to say it. So all of us regular people, that is where we are going to be eating dinner every single night. And I will say that it's pretty much first class. You're treated really well. But on to Deck 5, which is probably my favorite deck, mainly because it has Cafe El Baccio in there. Of course, on the right there is where all of the art gallery and stuff is. few more little stores that were down here. Breitling watches and some more bars. That's also another high-end bar that's right there. It's pretty cool. Usually people hanging out. And then here on the left-hand side is Cafe El Baccio. It is my favorite place. We were usually there at least 2 or 3 times per day. They also have staff that will come around and take your orders. And if you have any kind of a drink package, you can pretty much get stuff there for no additional charge. And there you can get your very own ice cream or gelato, but they only give you 1 scoop. Outside of that, you will be charged. I thought this was a really cool room. It's a 360 art design and really good for some photo ops, including one with my very own family. This was a seldom used room, at least we never really saw a whole lot of people back here, but it's a really nice bar, and it has the Murano, which is one of the specialty restaurants that is just off to the side of it. And if you go even further back, you're going to come across some other restaurants, including one that we had the chance to go to. It actually has 2 different names. I never understood that. Cuisine, as well as La Petite, which is their animated restaurant. We had the chance to do this, and I highly recommend if you can do it at least once, just so that you can see how they do it, because they will have this animation over top of your plate that goes along with the big huge story, and then the food that they bring out to you kind of follows along with the story. We really liked it. It was definitely an interesting experience, but I think once you do it once, you don't really need to do it again. And then back here, you have the Blue restaurant, which is only accessible if you have one of the Aqua class rooms. It is more of a healthy based restaurant. And then back here is the Tuscan Grill, which is also another really popular one for a lot of people to go to. We did not. We only went to the La Petite, but we did hear some pretty good things about the Tuscan Grill. If we go back the other direction near Cafe El Baccio, you have these poor little birds that are stuck in their cages. I tried to feed them, but I don't think they like the food very much. It was actually an interesting art installation. And next to it is Sushi on 5, which is more of a la carte style restaurant. It is not free. You go there and you pretty much just pay for the things that you want. I thought it was very interesting that every single restaurant has their own dress code, and they will put the dress codes on the little screen just in front of the restaurant. Last but not least, you'll find the theater. The theater is 2 floors. This is the bottom floor that you can kind of go into. Obviously, as you can see, they have tons of wheelchair space. They put on a different performance every single night. They had comedians, they did musical acts. One of the musical acts we will actually see later in the cruise. He decided to put on a second performance right in the middle of the ship for everybody to see. It was pretty cool. Deck 10. Yes, seriously, that is it. They put the library on deck 10. It was away from everything. Also ended up being just down the hall from where our new room became, but we'll explain that one here in a little bit. The times that we came through here, the only time we ever saw people was usually when they were sleeping. I never really understood that, but hey, wherever you're comfortable. On to deck 12. It's a very popular one. And starting off, we are gonna go past the spa and right on into the solarium, which is supposed to be more of your adult-only area. Now, granted, this ship did not have a whole lot of kids on it. I could probably count how many kids I saw with one hand. So it was end up becoming a solarium for everybody, essentially. There were a lot of people usually in here kind of lounging around. I thought this really cool water thing over here was interesting. I sat here and just stared at it for about 10 minutes. I don't know why, but it was almost mesmerizing in a way. The solarium also features its very own little food area. You can go and get stuff over there. And you have the jacuzzis and tons of window space and areas to lounge around. If you keep going though, you're gonna go straight to the main pool deck. This place ended up being absolutely packed all the time. Now, granted, this is early in the morning when I decided to actually go and walk around here and get a little bit of video. So that's why it kind of looks the way it does. But as you can see, at nighttime, they light everything up. It looks really cool, all sorts of different colors. It's really nice to just kind of hang out. It also rained on the day that I decided to get the video, and the main pool deck was pretty soaked, so I had to kind of be careful where I was walking. And just like the solarium, there is a ton of space to lounge around, and believe me, people used that space. Since there's no deck 13, we're gonna go right to 14 and 15. The reason I said both of them is because in order to get to 15, you have to go through 14. Back here is the Sky Lounge. We ended up going here probably once or twice a day. They do a lot of trivia up here. My daughter absolutely loves trivia, so we were going there constantly. Of course, we never won anything or usually even came close to it. Oftentimes their trivia is very wide ranged. They would do everything from 70s music hits to random, what kind of animal is this and what is a pack of them called? Okay. It was just random stuff. We always had fun kind of doing it, and we liked the host. She was very entertaining. But we never came close to winning anything, usually the bottom half when it came to points. But I will say, this is a really cool place to go and hang out, look out the windows. It is in the very front of the ship, and as you are sailing, you have about a 180-degree view of everything. So it's a nice place, and a lot of people would usually hang out there right next to the windows. There's also some musical acts that they will put on the little stage over here, and a really nice little bar. If there's something that you're wanting, they will have some staff that are also going around and taking your orders, so it's pretty nice. Of course, one of the biggest features is the Ocean View Cafe. This is during breakfast time. For some reason, those potatoes were always cold, though. Never really understood that. The menu doesn't really change for breakfast. It's always the same. This over here is a great spot, though. Good for oatmeal. Tons of stuff to put in your oatmeal. And they even have their very own English breakfast, including black pudding. But a lot of people would do the two-order stuff. You can make your own omelets, eggs Benedict, whatever it was. Just tell them what you want, and they would sit there and make it right on the spot. Over here is the top deck of the pool. Great for people watching. Early in the mornings, you would see a lot of people doing their walks around the pool deck. But if you turn around and go up the stairs, it also takes you to a really cool area known as the Lawn Club. Kind of famous for these ships where they have that big real grass area. For some reason, they tend to have it blocked off a lot, especially at nighttime. They didn't really want people walking on the grass. But during other times, they would definitely have different activities and things going on over there, and sometimes play movies when the weather is nice and people can kind of hang out. Of course, these areas that I'm passing do have a charge to them. You're not allowed to sit in those unless you pay out for it, of course. But if you continue down to the back of the ship, you're going to find the Sunset Bar and a lot more seating area. One thing I really appreciated about this ship is there was tons of places to just lounge around. If the weather is nice, you had lots of areas where you could appreciate the weather and look out the back and kind of see what's going on. At this time, we are already in Bermuda, but we haven't really done anything yet. I think we just arrived. The gangway's not even down yet, so we will get into some more about Bermuda here in a little bit. Going back the other direction, there you can see the Lawn Grill right there on the left. That is also another specialty restaurant. It charges you to go in there. And then right behind it is the Porch, which is not a specialty restaurant. It's another little area you can kind of go and hang out. Going back the other direction, we're first going to encounter the Masked Bar. This was the very first bar that we went to when we got on the ship, and when we also learned how confusing the drink packages actually are. They're normally set up so that, hey, if you're under $12 on a classic menu, then you can order anything for free for no additional cost. What it ended up being is, well, if you have certain juices or whatever, it has to be premium, and it was just really confusing. A big tip, if you say have the classic package, just tell them I have a classic package and what drink you want, and they'll make sure that whatever they make for you has the right things in it so that you don't get charged additional. It's really beneficial. But back here is where all of the retreat guests can go. That means you have to have some kind of a suite on board to have access to it. For some reason, the gate was open, so I was able to just kind of walk around and get through and check everything out. Outside of that, your card has to be able to get you through the gate, so I don't know if they were doing cleaning or something, but you can at least see what things look like. It's their own little private space to hang out away from, you know, all of us little people.
Okay, welcome to our new room. Basically, long story short, our other room apparently had some leaks in it from what we were originally told an AC, to eventually the bathtub was leaking and it stank really bad. So we couldn't really be in there comfortably, and they ended up moving us over to this room, which is one deck higher and 1026. And it is a wheelchair room, and we've already accidentally apparently set off the alarm twice, and we quite literally just got here. So this will be interesting. But we will say this. The steward tried his best to try and help fix our issues. It just couldn't get rid of the stench. And so we really appreciate the staff, the concierge staff, that were trying to switch us over into a new room. And it is definitely some more space. However, it seems to lack storage. Yeah, storage has kind of gotten less, but the room became more. And right now, I don't really have anywhere to put some things. And you know what? That's okay. I am very comfortable living out of the suitcase. But what's interesting is all of the doors, including the front door to the room, are all accessible just by pushing a button, and it opens it all up for you. Because again, this is meant for a wheelchair. And see that cord right there? I've already pulled and it set off an alarm. Oops. And then there was another button that was next to the bed, and she pushed that, I think, on total accident, and it kind of messed everything up. But hey, look, we get a seat in our shower. Yeah, that makes me feel old. All right. Anyhow, this we appreciate them trying to move us. It's kind of a major inconvenience, though, as we've had to completely repack all of our stuff and now unpack it. But hey, is what it is.
I really like knowing the places that we go to and understanding them. I checked out the history of Bermuda, and it was very fascinating and even tragic. It was originally founded all the way back in 1503 by a Spanish explorer named Juan de Bermudez. What makes him so interesting is the fact that he finds it, marks its location, and then essentially leaves. You can actually see here, I found, which I did not know, a Magic the Gathering card with his name on it. I had no idea. I've never even heard of Juan de Bermudez until this point. Obviously, the island was named after him, but the fact that he just finds the island and leaves is what makes this so interesting. There were no indigenous people in Bermuda, so the island was ripe for the taking, but instead of taking it, Juan de Bermudez leaves, and the island is not seen again for another 100 years, where in 1609, an English merchant ship is on its way to Jamestown, gets stuck in a hurricane, and crashes into it. The English immediately create a settlement, and after just 7 years, they start shipping slaves to the island to build up everything. And it remains this way for the next 200 years. All of the forts and different things that you see around Bermuda were built up almost entirely by slaves. And many of these things were used during the many different conflicts that the British had, including the American Revolution, where Bermuda was used as a staging ground. Thankfully, slavery was eventually abolished, and Bermuda is now self-governed, but also remains to be one of the oldest remaining British territories, and one of the most expensive ones.
Good morning, good morning. We are just now arriving in Bermuda. It is, let's see, about 8 a.m. Over there you have another cruise ship, the Norwegian Getaway. But we are really excited. We're supposed to be having gangway down around 8:30, and then we can have a chance to really start exploring and seeing what we got. But what's interesting about this cruise is we have 3 days of not moving, which means we can get off and on as much as we want.
As you stroll along here and get off of the ship, one of the very first things that you're going to find after a little bit of a walk is a orange tram. You're going to kind of see it there in the distance. This orange tram goes in a big loop that comes right back around so that you can also get on it later to come back to the ship. It goes to a couple different stops, and the very first stop here has a lot of stuff at it that most people are going to want to stop to. For one, if you're trying to do any kind of rentals as far as a scooter or small car, you can get it right there. But what's more important is this is also where you're going to catch the boat shuttles that will go to Hamilton and St. George. But to get on those, you have to have tickets or passes. Those are going to be at the building, and you see a whole bunch of people standing there in line. They're actually waiting in line to get in the building, and you can either buy single passes or you can buy 2, 3, whatever day passes where you can get on and off any of the buses or the boats as much as you want. Further up here, right there on the left in the orange and green and purple, is a boba place that is owned and run by some Filipinos. So of course we had to stop there and pick up some boba on one of the other days coming back. Our next stop that we're coming to is their mall. It's a very old building, but believe it or not, there is a mall inside there. And on the other side is actually where you're going to catch a bus. The buses, which we're going to be getting on here shortly, go from one end of the island to the other. But of course, first we had to do some shopping. And inside this little mall is pretty much any kind of souvenir or anything that you're going to be looking for. We definitely came back here the day before we left and bought some stuff for different people. Now we are already in Hamilton as we jumped on a bus coming here. It was maybe a 30-40 minute ride, but one thing that we noticed as soon as we got off the bus is how colorful it is. Every single building is going to be yellow and red or blue. We even found some bright pink buildings. So it's pretty refreshing to see. Soon we ended up just wandering over to find what is not only their city hall, but it's also their arts center. And it was really interesting to get up in there. You have to go up these stairs and all the way around, but it's a nice building, and you wind up in the arts center. It's not an overly large center, as they only feature certain artists at a time, but the first artist was somebody who is apparently known for taking pictures of a lot of waves and surfing. And then on the other side was Andy Warhol's stuff. And they're all real, it's not just prints. Around the corner, we found the Cathedral of the Most Holy Trinity. It was a really cool old church, very medieval looking. We had a chance to go inside and walk around and start looking at a couple different things. The architecture was just really cool to sit and look at, but I will say, being at a very old church, there was no air conditioning. They had a couple different fans blowing in different areas trying to keep people cool, but honestly it didn't do a whole lot. You can go up into the tower, but you have to pay for that, and we didn't even know where you're supposed to pay for it, so we didn't bother. Something we did not anticipate was how extremely hot and humid it was in Bermuda. So we eventually had to find another boba place, which also happened to be owned and run by Filipinos, and we got some really good drinks there. Immediately after, we started our journey back to the ship because of how hot it was, but we remained there the rest of the night and I got this really good footage. St. George, originally called New London, and was the first capital of Bermuda, as this is where the British originally settled. As you can see, the buildings are all still very colorful, and they looked very colonial, very old style. All of the roads looked just like this. It was a pretty cool area to walk around. This building caught my eye and originally freaked me out. If you look very close, there is the ghost of Winston Churchill. Soon enough, we came upon Bermuda's own perfumery, which is actually really interesting because you could go in and make all of your very own perfumes right on site. I only briefly went inside just to kind of look around, and then sat outside and sat next to this really nice gentleman who told me a really cool story. just around the corner is a really old church, and he was telling me that for several generations they go to Bermuda every so many years, and the different generations of children get their picture taken in the same pew of the church. Of course, this meant that we had to immediately go and check out the church as soon as the girls were done at the perfumery. Now, the side that I went on also had this really old cemetery. The girls, for some reason, were kind of afraid to go through the cemetery. I didn't mind, so I decided to go in, walk around. I eventually came back around to the front of the church, where I found them standing over at the entrance. Apparently the church does ask for a small donation, but we happily obliged. All around the walls were memorial plaques that went back hundreds of years, and we spent some time going through and reading out a bunch of them. But the area that I thought was the coolest was a back little side room, and it had a whole bunch of really old pictures and documents in it, including pictures of the royal family and even Princess Diana standing in front of the church and visiting it. This here is a very historical site called the Unfinished Church. Apparently, it's really well known. From what I understood and read and heard, they do all sorts of weddings and things there, and it's a pretty big tourist location. But I'll be honest with you, I was very underwhelmed. There was really nothing to see or do there. It was completely closed off. So the only thing that we could do is I was able to sneak a picture through the window, but there was nowhere else to go or anything to really see or do. I didn't understand the hoopla about it. After visiting the church, we decided to start making our way towards the Crystal Caverns, which is another big tourist attraction. We found chickens everywhere, as apparently they have no natural predators in Bermuda. There are two caves, the Fantasy Caves and the Crystal Caves. You can either take a tour on one of them or both. Each of them get your own tour guide, where they will explain everything to you. The Fantasy Caves are considered to be a little bit bigger, but both of them do require you to go down over 80 steps and then come back up those same steps. This also sometimes creates a bit of a bottleneck situation, as there is always two groups going at the same time. This means one group is going down as the other group is coming back up. The steps are not exactly wide, so you're always having to try and push yourself out of the way so that other groups can get past you. The caves themselves are absolutely beautiful, and the water is so clear that it fools your eyes. Things may look like it's sitting on the surface, but reality is it's actually more than 10 or even 15 feet deep. The tour guide was showing us where somebody actually dropped their passport, and it looked like it was sitting on the surface, but it was more than 10 feet deep into the water, which is why they were never able to get it back out. The best part of the tour is when they turn out the lights, and they do this to show you that the stalactites, which grow from the ceiling, actually maintain a glow. After the caves, we made our way back to the ship, and we took a bus. As you can see here, I was standing in the very back of the bus, holding on to the rails. Unfortunately, during tourist season, the buses can be absolutely packed. Eventually, all fun must come to an end, and that is when our adventure going back home began. I mentioned earlier in the video we had an amazing race situation. Well, our first non-stop flight home actually got canceled, and it was changed into 2 connecting flights. The first flight then ended up being so heavily delayed that we missed our second flight, which meant that we all got put on standby for another flight when we got to Detroit. When we got off the plane, we were all running, us and the other group, to see who could get seats on the next plane. Unfortunately, that plane too was also delayed because they had no stewards. They were waiting on the stewards to fly in from Newark, New Jersey of all places. Once we did finally get on the plane, that's when it started doing this and leaking on everybody, as the AC unit was apparently going overtime and they were handing out napkins to help plug it up. We finally made it home around midnight, but not before we found out that the airline also lost our luggage. Well, that's it for our video. Thanks for watching.